Dick Cheney, the hard-charging conservative who became one of the most powerful and polarizing vice presidents in U.S. history, and one of the principal architects of the Iraq invasion, has died at the age of 84. His family, in a solemn statement released Tuesday, confirmed that he passed away due to complications of pneumonia, along with cardiac and vascular disease that had long shadowed his health. Even in death, the announcement felt like the closing of a chapter in the turbulent and complex political story of America's modern era, a story in which Cheney was not just a participant, but a chief engineer. To many, Cheney was the iron fist inside the velvet glove of American power, a man whose influence often extended far beyond the visible corridors of the White House. As George W. Bush's vice president, Cheney redefined the office, transforming it from a largely ceremonial role into one of unparalleled authority and behind-the-scenes control. He wasn't simply a deputy or an advisor. He was a strategist, a policymaker, and in the eyes of his critics, a shadow president. His voice, calm and deliberate, often carried the weight of final decision-making. It was Cheney, not Bush, who many believed was truly running the White House during some of the most pivotal moments of the early 21st century. When he hunkered down in undisclosed locations after the September 11th attacks, it wasn't just for safety, it was symbolic. Those hidden bunkers became a metaphor for his political existence, a man of immense power operating from the shadows, pulling levers unseen, shaping destinies behind closed doors. He preferred quiet authority to public applause, and he wielded it with precision. He was the small man behind big machinery, an operator of immense influence whose decisions reverberated across continents. Some called him Machiavelli with a Wyoming drawl, a master manipulator with the patience of a chess player and the conviction of a warrior. George W. Bush once joked that the public saw him as the Darth Vader of the administration, and Cheney himself, ever the stoic realist, found the nickname amusing. "Am I the evil genius in the corner that nobody ever sees come out of his hole?" he once said with a dry grin. "It's a nice way to operate, actually." That sense of dark humor, mixed with an unwavering belief in the righteousness of his actions, defined much of Cheney's political career. To his admirers, he was a patriot, unflinching, steady, and fiercely devoted to protecting America. To his detractors, he was the embodiment of unchecked power, a man whose decisions unleashed wars, reshaped surveillance laws, and altered the moral compass of a nation. In truth, Cheney was both, a man whose vision for America's strength came with profound costs. Cheney's story begins far from Washington. In the quiet town of Lincoln, Nebraska, where he was born in 1941, and later in Casper, Wyoming, where he was raised, he came from humble roots. His father was a soil conservation agent, and his mother, a softball champion who taught him the value of discipline and competition. His upbringing in Wyoming instilled in him a deep love for the land, a conservative sense of independence, and a stoic resilience that would become his trademark. Yet behind his calm demeanor lay ambition, a restless hunger for influence and purpose. After attending Yale University, where he struggled academically and eventually dropped out, Cheney returned home, regrouped, and later earned his degree and a master's in political science from the University of Wyoming. Those early failures taught him the quiet ruthlessness of self-discipline, and he emerged from them with sharper edges. His path to power began in the Nixon administration, where he served as an intern and quickly impressed his superiors with his analytical mind and quiet efficiency. Under President Gerald Ford, Cheney rose to become the White House Chief of Staff at just 34 years old, one of the youngest ever to hold that position. It was there he honed his craft as a bureaucratic warrior, learning how to navigate Washington's internal machinery, how to exercise influence without overt confrontation, and how to accumulate power through loyalty and discretion. Cheney's motto, often unspoken, was simple: real power doesn't announce itself. After Ford's defeat in 1976, Cheney returned to his home state and ran for Congress. He won, beginning a decade-long tenure as Wyoming's sole representative. In Congress, he built a reputation as a staunch conservative, favoring limited government, strong national defense, and unwavering support for the fossil fuel industries that powered his state. But even then, Cheney was more than a partisan ideologue. He was methodical, pragmatic, and deeply strategic. He didn't chase headlines, he crafted policy. When Ronald Reagan entered the White House, Cheney became one of the administration's trusted congressional allies, particularly on defense spending and foreign policy. It was during his time as a congressman that Cheney first began to crystallize his belief in executive power, the idea that the presidency must remain strong and unrestrained, especially in times of crisis. This conviction, forged during the post-Watergate era when presidential power had been curtailed, would later define his vice presidency. To Cheney, the pendulum had swung too far toward congressional oversight, weakening the commander-in-chief's ability to act decisively. In his mind, America's strength, its ability to lead the world, depended on restoring the full reach of the executive branch. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush appointed Cheney as Secretary of Defense, a position that would bring him into the center of global power. He oversaw the U.S. military during the Persian Gulf War, a swift and highly coordinated operation that expelled Saddam Hussein's forces from Kuwait. The war, though brief, was decisive, a demonstration of American military dominance in the post-Cold War world. Cheney was hailed for his calm leadership and strategic clarity. Unlike others in Bush's cabinet, he resisted the temptation to march all the way to Baghdad, arguing that occupying Iraq would lead to an unwinnable conflict. Ironically, this restraint would contrast sharply with the policies he would later champion as vice president. After leaving government, Cheney entered the private sector as CEO of Halliburton, a major oilfield services company. His tenure there further deepened his ties to the energy industry and to the complex web of defense contracts that would later raise questions about conflicts of interest during the Iraq War. But Cheney thrived in the corporate world, honing his executive instincts and learning the language of power not just in politics, but in profit. By the late 1990s, he had amassed wealth, respect, and a reputation as one of Washington's most effective behind-the-scenes operators. Few could have predicted that he would soon become one of the most consequential figures in American history. When George W. Bush, then the governor of Texas, began his run for the presidency in 2000, Cheney was tasked with leading the search for a running mate. In a twist that would become a defining irony of American politics, Cheney ultimately chose himself. To Bush, he was the perfect partner, experienced, steady, and deeply connected within Washington's elite circles. To Cheney, it was an opportunity to return to power at the highest level, with a president young enough to lean on his expertise. What followed was a partnership unlike any in U.S. political history. Cheney's vice presidency redefined the role entirely. He was not content to preside over ceremonial duties or attend state funerals. He built a shadow network of influence, embedding loyalists throughout the Pentagon, CIA, and National Security Council. He attended key briefings, shaped talking points, and even reviewed intelligence before it reached the president. His hand could be felt in every major decision of the early Bush years, particularly in the aftermath of September 11, 2001, the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon transformed Cheney from a quiet policymaker into a wartime vice president. In the chaos of that morning, he was rushed to a secure bunker beneath the White House, where he coordinated with defense and intelligence officials. From that moment forward, Cheney saw the world through a single lens, one of perpetual threat. He believed that America must strike first, must act preemptively, and must never show weakness. That mindset would give rise to the War on Terror, the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, and the vast expansion of government surveillance,